So here are the tires or the hubs in the kit. Now it's thick paper, and what I've found is when they come together, they like make little cones. You can see how they're cut out. And when you slide those things together, make a cone, there's a very thick step. I mean, it's only the thickness of the paper, but it looks pretty obvious. So I trying an experiment. Took these to my little printer and copied them onto regular old typing paper, very thin stuff. So now the hubs, when they come together, they go together in the same way, but it's a much finer little line. And to my eye, you can still see there's a line there, but it's much less of a step. Now, I don't know if that's that important or not. What you could do is cut things off and actually have them come together a different way with a tab. Those are just 2 pieces of 1/8 balsa cross-grained, stuck in my Dremel, sanded. I sanded the flat piece on there, primed them a couple times and sanded them with automotive primer, and then painted with a little bit of, I think it was Tamiya rubber with some white thrown in there. And I use wire to basically act as a guide, sort of. I mean, you can just eyeball it, which is fine. This just gives me a better idea of where things are supposed to go. So that's kind of where that cone goes. Now it's thin paper, like I said, but it's not structural in any way. End up putting some glue around, carefully around the inside edge, and end up just putting it over that wire as a guide, and then dropping it down onto the wheel, just like that. And that way you sort of have an idea of where it's supposed to be. And then I end up moving around a little bit. And then if I just take this and just very gently touch it, either on the edges like that, or I pull the wire out and I sort of just push down very gently on the center. Again, remember, this is typing paper, so it's going to squash, and you don't want it to squash. Just enough to get it so that it seats and so that the paper and the glue actually come in contact. And then you've got your little hub. And so you just got to remember there's 2 different styles in there. There's the piece with the hole on the side like that, and then there's this piece with the lacing. The lacing goes on the inside of each wheel. So when you put it on the airplane, make sure the lacing's on the inside. So then there's the lacing part going on the other side. This time I just decided to forego the wire, and I hold it up to the light and I can see through the hole and make sure that she's pretty good. Just to make sure, I stuck some wire in, and sure enough, it's not way off. Again, just so that I have an idea that, center and center is going through. Because if I push this through and I push the hub off, I know I'm way, way off. Again, now a little bit of pressure, and the edges all kind of come down. If any glue squeeges out, it doesn't matter. And, there's a tire and a hub. And they look extremely convincing, in my opinion. I like the balsa wheels. Works well. Now, just to show you, here are these pieces. And at the center, there's a hole that's been cut there. And look at this great tool my son got me. This ain't cheap. This is a Japanese hole punch that's used for binding, book binding. But this bad boy is absolutely fantastic. He got me a whole bunch of bits. In this case, 2.5mm works. But this is basically a drill. You push down on it and it turns on its own, and that blade is very sharp. And now making holes is, talk about a piece of cake. It's the whole cake and a few bits of ice cream. Put that over, match it up, and you just push down, and it spins, and you make this incredible little hole. Clean, sharp, and it takes seconds. So, and I got bits that go from 1mm up to like 5 or something. So, man, I am really loving that tool. Thanks, Peter. So, here briefly, I'm just going to show cutting these out, just because you get to be careful a little bit, just to sort of show people what's going on. Use a straight edge along that piece, and everything else can be cut out freehand. Cut that little piece out for the little tongue that fits underneath. And using the typing paper is just like the regular model paper, but you do have to just, be careful. You should have a sharp blade, for instance, because it'll rip. Because you're so used to using the other paper. The other people's paper seems so thick. Anyway, you just very carefully follow this around the edge, and you just zip that sucker around, not at that speed, And there you have it. Now you color the edges on everything, just with a little marker or with paint, something close to what the color is. Even though it's typing paper, you can see there's white edges on there, so to me it's important to do this step, even though it's much thinner. I should have just made one of the old hubs I can show you, but I didn't. And then here I put, again, emboss very lightly, because again, this is typing paper, to make that tongue bend. And make sure that it will actually bend in like so that when I turn this into a little cone, I'll have a place to put the glue. Now I form this just like you do any other cone with a little back end of a handle, but in this case you do this very carefully because again, I'm not putting much pressure on this and it starts to form immediately because the paper is so thin. So just make, if you use this, the kit parts are just fine. Go ahead and use them. But if you do this, you just got to sort of shift gears. Make sure you're not pushing too hard. Put a little glue on the little tongue underneath there. And then just roll these together and hold them for a brief second, line everything up, hide the white. And then I just hold them for a few brief seconds. They should start to adhere and glue. And then I squeeze them with my tweezers. You should use broader tweezers. It's probably much more efficient. I couldn't find them at the moment, but little tweezers to make sure that you get nice contact. And there's a hub done. And then you just got to finish all the others and put the wheels together again. So it's, they're very convincing. They look nice. The hole on the very end, by the way, will be covered with a little tiny piece of paper that I'll cut out with a hole punch, just black, and that will cover up the hole once the things are all together on the airplane. Voila. So here we are putting them on the airplane. I've test fit them, so I take my super glue and go ahead and put a blob on there, relatively large. I mean, not a huge amount, but it is a drip. And then I'm trying to make it so that it makes contact with the wood in there. Make sure I know which end goes which side is which. Making sure that I'm putting the lace on the inside. And then you just go ahead and slide this puppy in. It should make contact if your axle is the right length. Now you can't see, but I'm rolling it so the flat side is going to match up with my tail skid. So that it will sit, hopefully, and look like there's weight on it. I think I hold it over here and try to show you. Here I'm just checking it. Again, something you can't tell on the camera, but I'm trying to make sure it's pretty close. You should get down on your hands and knees and look. But there is the angle. You just you need a little bit of an angle, and that's pretty close. And here they are all together. And you can see that they're thick, they're nice, they look like real wheels, they look like rubber. I like them a lot. It's easier for me to work with balsa than sandwiching cardboard, in my opinion. But there's all kinds of ways to make wheels. But here she is sitting on her rubber, and looks awesome. It's so nice to have it at the normal stance it's going to be in. Of course, I don't know where I'm going to put it. I might have to end up hanging it from the ceiling. Then the wheels won't be useful. Now, something else I did off camera, I just finished rigging, and I rigged all these aileron pieces. And it was very simple. I will show how to rig at some point. I have an old video showing how to rig. And you can look for it. It's one of the very earliest videos I made. But the quality isn't that good. So I'll make another one, I promise. But those are those pieces rigged up on the ailerons. So technically, all of the rigging is done on this airplane now. I got the landing gear rigged. I got those ailerons rigged. So really, she's done. I mean, what's left now are the scarf mounts for the machine guns, the bomb sight, and then in the front, and then some bomb shackles underneath. I don't know if we're going to actually make bombs for it because it never carried any, but I'm at least going to, not in anger. But there you can see what they look like. Extremely convincing, and it just looks so cool having it all together like that. Can't believe this used to just be some flat pieces of paper. The beauty of paper models, people.